I want to tell you a little bit about how I began in education and then how I transitioned into becoming a teacher, an educator. And all these experiences in my past and currently as an educator have led me now to this place where I'm leading new change and new opportunities in education in Ethiopia. When I was very young, I was in the public school system, and the first year in kindergarten wasn't very successful in terms of my growth as a learner, as a student. And my parents were very unhappy with this, and so they pulled me out of public school and they put me in a private school. And this private school, all the way up from kindergarten, which I redid, from kindergarten all the way to sophomore year, I was in this one school. And this school was all about personalizing the learning. Not so much in terms of content, but certainly in terms of skills and pacing and setting goals. And so students had a lot of freedom and choice in how they progressed through the learning. There were set expectations about the content and what kinds of content, which courses, history, mathematics, science, English, etc. But the pace and how we went about it was really up to the student. There were no teachers really. There were adults who were considered supervisors who oversaw everything that was happening in the classroom, in the learning space. Whenever a student needed support or help, they would bring the supervisor to their workspace, ask questions, and get the support and help that they needed. In this program, I became incredibly efficient as a learner. I learned what the best practices were for me. I learned how best to learn. I learned to be resilient. I learned to push through obstacles, problem solve, find solutions where there seemed to be no solutions. I found ways to really organize my time and organize projects and manage all of this. I found effective ways to communicate with adults and communicate with my peers. This program did lack a little bit in the substance of the learning itself in terms of the content, and so there is an argument against programs such as these where students are given a lot of freedom. The question is, will students actually learn the things that they need to learn? Are they going to be effective with their literacy skills or their mathematics skills, etc.? And the answer is yes, there can be some sacrifice in those areas. But what is gained in terms of this freedom to explore and learn in the students are skill sets that just cannot be quantified. And that was the case for me. I got to college and I was a little bit behind in terms of content, but the skills I had were much stronger than most of my other colleagues in college. And so I ran right past them, and I just charged ahead and made up years and years of other content that they would have got in a public school system. I picked up very quickly because I had these skills to manage my time super effectively and to set out a course, a plan for the learning for myself. I knew how to maximize that. I knew how to learn multiple things at once. I knew how to collaborate, communicate, and use that as a tool to drive my learning forward. And so I really had a leg up on other people who had not had this kind of experience in learning. Then at university, I finished my course of study. I studied literature, and then I also became a teacher. So I combined these two at university. I finished top of my class at university. I was the speaker for graduation, and clearly the skills I had developed in my younger years in education really helped me propel to this level of success. So then I began my teaching career in Oregon, and I found that some of the best practices I had been taught weren't necessarily best practices for this particular demographic of students, and I had to make some adjustments. I began to give more autonomy to the students and listen to their needs, and that helped drive some of my instructional practices, and I saw some things improve in the classroom. Then there was this one moment that changed everything for me. Our school district was cutting positions due to budget shortfalls, and unfortunately I was the latest one hired in my department, and so they had to release me. And I began pursuing something else. I started looking into community theater, and I was getting ready to do other work. And then a couple days before school started, the school district called me and they said, "Oh, we have a position that opened. An English teacher and journalism teacher has left. We'd like you to take that position." So I took the position, and I walked into a journalism class. I never taught journalism, never had any training, formal training in university. And I walked in thinking I was just the best thing ever. I began to teach, And the student said, "Mr. Smalley, stop. Just sit down. We got this." And I looked around the room and there were awards littered every single place along the perimeter of the ceiling. Every place where there was a spot where an award could be, there was an award. This team was an amazingly effective and high-performance journalism team. And I sat down kind of pouting and frustrated, like, whatever, students, you guys can take the lead, I don't care. Let's see what you can do. Sure, I'll call your bluff. And I was amazed. I couldn't believe what I saw. These students led this program so effectively, so efficiently in ways really the school itself, led by adults, wasn't being run. And that's not to say the school wasn't run well, but the degree to which these students were leading the journalism program was incredible. It was in that moment that I realized, wow, students can lead things. They can drive their own learning. They are interested in things other than video games. They're interested in a lot of things. And they are capable of things that I just never thought they were capable of. I mean, they really ran this better than adults could. They ran it well in terms of economics. They ran it well in terms of communication, in terms of structure, in terms of project management, in terms of time management, in terms of guidance of those who they were training, in terms of innovation, in terms of developing new skill sets. I mean, these guys were on top of their game. These students were fantastic. I began to wonder about the assumptions I had as a result of this. I reflected a lot that year, and I realized that one of the assumptions that many teachers have, that if students are left to their own devices, all hell will break loose. And that's an interesting assumption, this assumption that we have to be in charge of the learning, we have to drive it. But before they come to school, think about all the things that students are doing, or young children are doing pretty much on their own. They are learning fundamental and complex skills. They learn to walk. They learn to talk, they learn to interact with others, they learn to play, they learn to climb on the playground, they learned all kinds of skills, riding a bike. They learned all of these things without a classroom, without a homework, without a test. They learned it because they were curious and they modeled other people and they collaborated and they practiced and they failed. And they were motivated to do this. And so school seems to be all of a sudden this moment where we're like, you know, at age 6 or 7, you're kind of done. We're going to take over the learning for you. And then we see sort of this drop off in interest in learning as the years progress through school. And I wonder if the assumption that we don't trust that kids could do their own learning is built into that and is sort of the catalyst for this drop off in learning and drop off in interest in learning. So I begin to shift. I begin to assume that students are interested in learning. Maybe they're not always interested in the things that I think they should be interested in, but nevertheless they're interested in learning. And they're curious. And they want to try things. And they want to explore things. And having that shift in my education, in my teaching, in my mindset, and having that shift in my philosophy and my pedagogy as a teacher made a huge difference. And ever since 2009, I've been trying personalized learning in the classroom. More and more giving over freedom with scaffolding, giving over the freedom and the control to the students, letting them choose their own learning path within the confines of my content area that I'm responsible to make sure that they're educated in, let's say 9th grade English. I found that it has been a profound impact on the students' learning. I did this in Oregon. I started to do personalized learning. I went to Kazakhstan. I really went deep on the personalized learning, and the things that my students accomplished in Kazakhstan was incredible. That's for another video. In Belarus, I did the same thing. And you know, it wasn't always perfect at these places. I'm sure I have former students who would view this video and say, yeah, but I really wish it would have been different, or I wish you would have approached it differently. So it's not like it's perfect for all students, but generally speaking, for most students, this approach of giving over the freedom to the students is very effective. So now I'm in Ethiopia, and I have the honor and the privilege of running 2 different programs, co-leading it with another educator. One is called our PLEx program, and one is called our Inception Program. Our PLEx program stands for Personalized Learning Experience. It's a 5-week program where students really get to explore whatever they want at the end of the year. Our Inception Program is a 2-year program in which students use essentially much of their elective courses to then do what's called Inception and dive deeply into an area of their own interest. Maybe it is a career interest, maybe it's just a hobby interest, maybe it's just something that they want to know more about. And we really focus in this program on helping the students understand who they are, what their strengths are, what their value add is to the world, genuinely speaking, like really assessing what they can bring to the table. Next, finding out what it is they would like to bring to the table, what skills they still want to develop, what knowledge they still want to build upon. And then lastly, to identify where their weaknesses are. What are the areas that they truly struggle in, and develop some vulnerability around that, and then some grit to try to target and address some of those skills and knowledge elements that they need to improve. Year 2, the students then take a lot of that training and some mini projects that they were doing, some leadership opportunities that they were doing in year 1, and then translated that in year 2 into an internship where they're going to do some action research, they're going to create models, prototypes, they're going to start programs, they're going to do job shadowing or internships. So this is a fantastic program where students really are given the freedom to go off and explore an area of interest. Furthermore, in my English 11 and English 12 classes, it's like a standard 11th grade English course and a standard 12th grade English course, I've given students a ton of freedom in the learning. Non-negotiable are the units of study, the learning targets in those units, and the final assessments. These are the non-negotiables at our school that I've worked with our department to develop. However, getting from the beginning of the unit to those final assessments, all of that time and space is up to the students. I've given this over to the students. Now, of course, I give lots of scaffolding and lots of support. I give them models, I give them examples, I give them different strategies, I give them different resources. I get guests in the classroom to speak to them. There's many things that I do to help support students. You don't want to give complete freedom such that it overwhelms them. But I do want to give complete freedom to the best that I possibly can in a way that these students can handle it and move forward in the learning. So, a particular unit, say unit 3 of study in the year, I say here's where we're going, here's the learning skills and knowledge that you need to develop, here's how I'm going to assess it at the end. How would you like to get there? So students determine their own grouping. They have to give a defense for that grouping, why they think that grouping is effective for their learning. They then have to fill out a business proposal, a full multi-page document where they determine what it is they want to do, what learning activities they want to engage in to help develop those skills. It could be video tutorials, it could be quizzes, it could be reciprocal teaching, it could be projects, it could be expressions in art, it could be lectures. Funny thing is, often these students ask me to lecture them because they want some knowledge given directly to them. I don't often lecture, but in these opportunities I do. And so we have a Google Calendar for every student that they have to complete for this particular unit. They plan out every single day, and every single day when they're done, they put a reflection inside that calendar as well, reflecting on what worked and what didn't. I had set out to do this, but instead I did this because I found that that made more sense for the learning. And in that calendar, then they'll actually set a date for when they want me to come in and teach them. Come in means we're already all in the classroom, but they ask me on that particular day to be ready to lecture. And so then they send me the invite, and it's in my calendar. And when I show up, they literally have a pen and paper ready to go, and they're like, "Hurry up, Mr. Small, you're late. Let's go. Are you ready to teach us today?" So it's flipped. Whereas usually the teacher's saying, "Students, are you ready? Come on, get your notes out." It's the other way around. The students are holding me accountable to the learning. This frees me up then, during every single unit, to spend the first part of class giving a mini lesson. There's still content that I think is really important to give, whether it's a small activity, a small practice. Maybe I do stand up and give direct instruction on some things. I spend about 15 minutes on that every class, and then I let students begin their work. During that free time when they're working, I start bringing students up one at a time. And so during that time, what I'm doing with the students is I'm able to work with them one-on-one. While students are working independently on the things that they said that they would set out to do, their learning activities, what I'm doing is pulling the students up and really personalizing that learning, finding that one-on-one time with the student, determining what their weaknesses are and targeting those specifically per student. I do this about 15 minutes and then I rotate to the next student. And class after class after class, I have this opportunity to engage one-on-one with students. It's a super powerful way to structure the classroom. Of course, it's kind of chaotic. Students are doing different things and they're in different groupings and different learning activities. It can be a lot to track. But I found it to be fundamentally a difference maker in the classroom. And you might ask, so what have been the results? Well, students more or less, in my opinion, according to the numbers that I see, perform about the same on their essays, on their summative assessments. There hasn't been a difference, but what I have seen is a difference in student engagement, a difference in their ability to manage themselves, their ability to collaborate with others, their ability to think critically about a situation and problem solve things. So I'm seeing these other types of skills that I'm really excited about them developing, these sort of transdisciplinary skills that are being addressed and are improving in addition to the content. And really that's one of the shifts. Personalized learning is one shift, but the other one is that we need to start shifting towards skills that are transdisciplinary, because that's what the world needs today. Transdisciplinary skills, not just content knowledge. Our head of school often talks about the currency of knowledge decreasing every day. You can Google it. The fact that you have knowledge is a lot less important, a lot less significant than it ever has been. It's too easy to get a hold of information. The question now is what students can do with information. And that's where those transdisciplinary skills come into play. Of course you need to know mathematics, of course you need to know literacy skills, of course there are many different academic areas where you have to have a base set of knowledge. So we can't neglect that, and that's why in my classes I still have the core content and learning targets, the summative assessments there. While that's happening, I am trying to get students to really be independent learners at the same time and develop those transdisciplinary skills that they need for the future. If I were to sum this whole thing up, I would say that what we need is to take education from an archaic model that was for a different time and met different needs, and fundamentally shift it to something that actually meets today's needs. I think COVID-19 and this whole situation, I think it's sort of helped us realize that a shift is coming, change is coming, and we really need problem solvers, critical thinkers, flexible students, young people that go out into the workforce that can really make a difference and not just sit down in a classroom in a desk and follow instructions. If you would like to know more about what I'm doing in Ethiopia, what I've done in some of my core classes in Kazakhstan, Belarus, Oregon, please reach out to me, make a comment down below, and I'll get back to you and let you know what's working, what's not, give you some strategies, some tips. I might have some resources I can also send to you.